Anyway, Black Bag, amazing screenplay. I think it's one of your best, maybe to date. And you know, you obviously have some great work.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I think I read that this kind of actually dated back to research you did on Mission Impossible like 30 years ago.
It
Is that
did,
true?
yeah. Yeah, I've been putting this one off. Um, yes, we were, we had a number of CIA advisors on that. And I would, we'd ask a certain amount of technical questions, about basic spy stuff and not so basic spy stuff. And then, but I was always, I'm a writer, so I'm nosy, and I would start asking about people's personal lives. And because it struck me that a profession where you lie for a living has to be a hard one to have personal relationships in. And to a person, they would say, "Yeah, it's brutal. It's a real conundrum." The line actually showed up in the movie in Black Bag. If I date someone outside the community, they don't understand, and they don't have any clearance, so I can't talk about anything. And if I date someone inside the community, I don't trust them because they're liars, and,
Hmm.
and so am I. So that I thought I just kind of carried that nugget in my head as a that's a kind of approach to a spy movie I haven't seen before, and I'd like to see it.
Is Black Bag a real term that's used in that field, or?
Well, it is now,
Oh,
or it ought to be. No, I made that up. I
okay.
wanted a catch-all for where do things go. That actually came from a filmmaker friend of mine talked about a director he worked with, and in dailies, if uh, if a take was particularly egregious, the director would say, "Oof, black bag," which means get the negative, put it in a bag, and throw it in the East River. I don't ever want to see it again.
I wasn't even sure if the NCSC is a real thing, or if not, if it's a real
That
British
is real.
agency. It is. Oh, it is real. Okay. Because one of those things, if it's real, well, why would they talk to you? Why would anyone talk to you about it? Because I feel like it is such a high security place.
Yeah, it's hard. GCHQ is I mean, NCSC is a division of GCHQ, um, sort of roughly equivalent to to our NSA, and particularly certain aspects of what our NSA does. Um, I did not have a problem getting people to talk to me on this. If active duty people, not so much, but recently retired people will talk. People like to talk about where they work. Um, and it's not really hard to get them talking. And to the limit, they all have NDAs, so then you butt up against what the limits of an NDA are. But if you learn to how to read and interpret their responses to your questions, when they say sorry, classified, that means you're on the right track. So you can sort of get questions answered without anybody violating their NDA.
So George Woodhouse is based on yourself, basically. You're basically the George.
Um, well, all writers are nosy and intrusive, and we learn. You learn if you do whatever you can to get somebody talking, and once they're talking, shut up and don't stop them. Don't do anything that would interrupt them.
So the fact that you talk to these agents like back from Mission Impossible, is this something you kind of like wrote down a note about? I want to do something about relationship in this field, and then 30 years later you just said, "Oh, what can I work on today? Boom, let's do this."
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I carry it around. I keep a lot of script ideas in various files. And I this one kept had always occurred to me. I remember I was gonna work on it, and then True Lies came out, the
All right.
James Cameron movie, and they're married, and I thought, oh well, that kind of steals my area. And then I was going to work on it again, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith came out, and I
All right.
thought, oh well, they're married. I don't want. But then I realized look, marriage is a common institution. I don't think I have to wait. And then the writer's strike came like a year and a half ago, and coming up on 2 years, and suddenly I had 4 or 5 months to myself, and I thought this is a great one because it's very complicated, and what I need to make this work is quiet. I need I need to not talk to anybody and not get any notes and not have anybody waiting for it. And that's the absolute best way to write because you can really focus.
Oh wow. And you've been doing Steven's been directing. This is the third movie in a row he's directed of your from your screenplays. It's something like like over the course of the years you've been working on those other movies, did you kind of just say, "Oh, there's another screenplay here, Steven, read it. He likes it. I'm going to do this." Like, how's it work between the two of you? Because you've known each other for a long
Yeah, I
time too.
mean, you're kind of kicking stuff around. After Kimmy, that was the first one we did in about 3 years ago. It went so well, and I was so happy with it. And we just our big fear was we've known each other for 30 years and been friends, and our big fear was, will will this ruin the friendship? Let's find out.
Hmm.
And it didn't. I was happy with the way he worked. He was happy with the way I worked, and the movie turned out great. So we started talking about, I started throwing ideas at him, and I remember I'd written like a 2 or 3 page summary of this, of what I had in mind, and sent it to him and said, "What about this? Something like this." And he said, we met for dinner, and he said, "I said, did you read that thing?" And he said, "Yeah, but I want to do this instead." And he told me the idea for presents, and I said, "Okay, fine, that's cool." So I wrote presents, and while he was off doing it, I said, well, maybe he just hasn't seen it fleshed out. I'm going to write it anyway.
Hmm.
So I wrote it as a screenplay. I did 3 or 4 drafts, and then he was the one and only director I showed it to.
Was it always set in the UK? Because I feel like that adds a whole nother layer of intricacy. Because obviously, neither of you live in the UK, and um,
No, I lived there for 5 years with my family from 2014 to 2019.
oh wow, okay.
We lived in London, so I knew the I knew a bit about writing for British characters. I felt not like a native, but a bit. Um, but no, it wasn't, to answer your question. When I wrote it, without Stephen's involvement, it was set in the Washington area, and it was the NSA. And it was really his only note on the script was, I feel like if I go to shoot this, I've seen all those angles before on Washington. And if you ever go like scouting in Washington, D.C., it's true. There's about 4 good angles, and you've seen them all in movies. And the rest of it is very spread out, not very visually interesting place. Whereas London, it's hard not to have a good shot. So he said, he said, "I think it would feel a little fresher if you moved it to London. So would you consider?" So I said, "Yeah, I don't think that's very hard." So I did. And I was happy with, uh, I think he's right. I think it feels a bit fresher.
How do you generally work together? I mean, do you try to go to set, or you're always busy working on other things that you can't really spend too much time on location?
I didn't visit this set even once.
Okay.
I just don't. I used to go a lot when I was younger, and it was very exciting. But now, if I'm not directing, there's really nothing to do. So I go, and it's fun for an hour, and then you see. I was on a set the other day with Spielberg shooting his new movie, and I drove up to where they were shooting, and I stayed about an hour, and it was fascinating. And then they were all in a tizzy because the rain was coming, and they had to get a certain shot in before the rain came. And a crane wasn't doing what it was supposed to do, and it was cold, and it was windy, and that meant that those lights were in trouble, and the tent was kind of flapping around, and everybody was getting wet. And I thought, I'm going home. You don't need me. So there isn't much to do. And also, I feel like sometimes if I show up, I feel like it encourages rewriting, and I don't really want there to be rewriting at the 11th hour, because I feel like, hey, why don't we go with the thing that's been worked out and thought through over a couple of years, instead of whatever sounds like a good idea at the last minute.
Yeah, I feel like Charlie Kaufman kind of got it right with that adaptation. When if you're a screenwriter going to the set, it's kind of like Nicolas Cage in that movie, where he's just kind of like, you know, he's there and he's like either having to work or just
What
being
does he
or
do? I don't remember
oh,
that
you don't
part.
remember that? Oh, there
What
was a part where
happened? No, what
like
happened?
Nicolas Cage shows up at the on the set of the movie he's written, and like no one knows who he is, and he kind of is just there, and it's kind of like everyone's just trying to make the movie, and yeah,
Yeah, you are an appendage. There's
it's
there's no question.
yeah, it's a very, very funny scene. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like you have this kind of really. I mean, since we spoke last, you have so many screenplays kind of coming out, being produced between the ones with Steven Soderbergh and Spielberg, and returning to Jurassic World. And it's kind of the longest stretch without you directing a movie. Also, is that kind of just was that kind of just because of the strikes, pandemic, those kind of things, and just getting
Yeah,
you
it just life. I mean, directing is some people are a duck to water. I'm not. It's hard. I find directing physically difficult, psychologically emotionally difficult. Um, so usually I direct a movie, and I've done seven now. I direct a movie and I say I'm never ever doing that again. I
know.
love writing. Writing is my thing. I'm not going to go through that experience. Absolutely not. And then 3 or 4 years later, that's burned off. So You Should Have Left was 2020, so I'm a little behind schedule. You're right. But I have a thing in mind that I would like to direct. Um, I just need to. All I got to do is get a movie star and somebody to give me tens of millions of dollars. That's the that's the easy part.
That's it. Yeah,
Just kidding. That's not the easy part.
yeah. No, I know, I know.
Okay.
Would you ever thought of doing comedy again? Because I liked Ghost Town a lot. I thought that was kind of a really little bit of a departure from what you've normally done. But it
Oh,
was
thank you. Yes, I love doing that. And it's one of my favorite movies I've worked on. And part of that is I wrote it with my sometime writing partner John Camps, who is a very funny guy with a big heart, and that shows. So that's something I can do with him, but not necessarily on my own.
nice, nice. Well, it's funny because you're the way you talked about writing versus directing. You're kind of the antithesis of Guy Ritchie, who once told me that he just wants to be on set. He doesn't even want to sit behind a computer or
Hmm.
typewriter. He likes having the script. He throws out ideas and gets writers to write them, but he likes to be on set directing. That's his thing.
Well, we probably get along then because I hate that part and he hates my part, so I think that'd be all right.
Yeah, I was curious. I mean, I know you can't say much about Jurassic World or the Spielberg, but I mean, what kind of it got you wanting to do that again? Did you actually have an idea and then you just went to Steve and said, "Hey, I'd like to do this," or how did it kind of like come out? Or did they come to you,
It
or
went the other way. He
uh,
called me and said, "Hey, what about doing a new Jurassic?" And I said, "What would it be about?" And he said, "Well, I had this one idea," and he gave me an idea from what is now a big section of the movie. And I said, "That's cool. How would we justify that? How would that work? What's that world like?" And then we just started talking, and emailing and spitting ideas back and forth, which is my absolute favorite part of the process, the making them up part.
hmm.
There's nothing better than that. And hey, wouldn't it be cool if? Um, and that's the part I really love. And then so that it was pretty clear early on. Well, let's in a sense start over because well, movies seem to do that every three movies. There's a new approach. And I said, but we don't want to deny the events of the other six movies because I hate that. So it's not it's not a reboot in the parlance of the times. It's just it's a new chapter. So what can that tone be like? We get to change tone, we get to change cast, we get to change location. Um, and that all felt very fresh to me. And then I wrote it, and it really was just a delightful writing experience. I love these movies. I feel like I get this tone, and it was weird to be doing it again 30 years later, but also not weird. It felt like I couldn't decide if this feels like 30 years ago or a week ago that I did this.
Wow, wow. Did you watch the other Jurassic World movies too, or did you feel you need to, or is
Yeah,
it
I
sort
watched
of
everything. No,
oh you've always watched
I'd
them? Okay.
seen everything, but I watched it all again, and I read both of Crichton's books again.
Oh wow, nice, interesting.
So I really, immerse yourself. Played a lot of Jurassic soundtracks.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm one of those weird film critics who likes every single one of these movies. I just like it's just like
Great. Well,
it was a
let's
great.
hope we can keep it going with you on this one.
Yeah, it was a great concept. But I mean, I have such a fond memory because I didn't watch many movies in the '90s. I was working in the studio, and I literally played hooky to see Jurassic World and a sequel.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, looking forward to that. Dave, it's great talking to you again. And hopefully next time we talk, it's for a movie you directed. Hopefully a pleasant
Well,
experience.
hopefully the
So,
next time we talk is for Jurassic.
oh
So
maybe yeah, that'd be good too.
come on back because we gotta sell a few tickets to that one too.